Welcome to the Coaches Show. I'm Darrin Joins, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director, and we are here to talk about the final regular season matchup in WCS District 10 4A. It's Page High School visiting Independence High School. We're going to talk to our girls and boys basketball coaches. We're going to start with the girls coaches. Welcome to the show, Coach Randy Kaufman, Page High School.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys having us.
And for the first time on the show, she's a first-year head coach here in WCS. Please welcome Miss Bree Jackson. Coach, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Coach Kaufman, again, welcome back to the show. Coach Jackson, first time, not only this year, but first time here in WCS. I'm going to start with you, Coach Kaufman. You were in here a couple of weeks ago. You're on a 7-game winning streak. You take care of Summit. Now you're on an 8-game streak, and it's kind of set up. Okay, we got a 3-way tie. It's Brentwood, Nowensville, Page. You love that as a coach. Your players love it. You got them both coming to your gym, and you lose 2 tough games by a total, I think, of 6 points.
Yeah, two great basketball teams and 2 really good games. I thought we were highly competitive in both, and I thought both teams came in very prepared. And it came down to who was going to get the ball last. And unfortunately, we were on the short end of that. Sometimes that breeds itself toward getting your focus level at a better spot. So hopefully that's the route we take.
Now your team's bounced back since then. You had a win over Franklin on Tuesday, which we'll talk about in a minute. But what was the head like the Tuesday or the Monday after that second game on Friday?
Well, I think kids are going to be hard on themselves, and I've said all along that Mary Elizabeth Fox is the strength. Her greatest strength, her greatest weakness. She can let stuff roll off her back and just continue forward with just the most positive vibe. And for it to bother her a little bit, that was different. But it's like I told her. I said that's conviction. That's you're convicted that, hey, I want to be great in that moment. And I said, the only way that you fix that is get back to that moment. And so I was really pleased with how she approached this week and approached last night.
Coach Jackson, before we talk about your team, which we will do, we're going to introduce you to our audience here. Tell us about your background before you got to Independence High School.
Yes. Well, I was born and raised here in Nashville, Tennessee. I went and coached my first year at Riverdale High School. The last couple of years I've been at Brentwood Academy, and then now I'm here at Independence.
Pretty good player in your own right, too, Coach. Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, basketball's always been my life. Everybody, makes a joke with me. It's like, are you going to leave basketball? I'm like, no, it's just a part of my DNA, my history. But played at Brentwood Academy, played for some championships, and then went on to play college ball at Morehead State University for 4 years as well. And
let me ask you this, Coach Kaufman, because you've got some Riverdale ties. Any ties between the two of you with that river? I know it's been a while since you were at Riverdale, but any connections there?
I think as far as me and my respect for Bree, I've seen her on the exposure circuit, and she works hard for kids, and she's got her heart in a good spot. She understands the importance of relationships, and then at the same time, she can show tough love, and she's able to share her passion with players. She was before me at River, or I guess maybe a little bit after me at Riverdale.
Bit after.
I finished up in 18 there, and Bree, I think, followed me from that point. But good coaches, they tend to collect near each other, and I think that's what you see with Coach Bree and Rhonda Brown at Brentwood Academy, and now you see her, reaping those benefits in her first year head coach at Independence.
What's interesting about that Riverdale program, maybe not so much current day, but if you go back 10, 15 years, there's a lot of really good coaches where somewhere there was a Riverdale kind of connection. Mm-hmm. Y'all agree with that?
I agree.
Can't deny that one.
I can't agree. I can't go against that.
Well, I guess in the past couple of years, we've had 3 head coaches, Coach Wild, yourself, now Coach Jackson, that have that.
That's correct.
That have that deal. One of the things I've seen happen here too, and Coach Jackson, I'd be interested in your opinion on this. Coach Kaufman and I have talked about it many times and on this show. Girls basketball in Williamson County has really improved. If you went backwards, not that we're in the past here, but you go back 10, 15 years, now Page had some good teams. They were in that lower classification. But really, from the large school classification, it was kind of Brentwood and Coach Sigenthaler. At the end of the year, they were kind of the team left standing. The fact that we have more parity in the league now, I think speaks to the big-time improvement of girls basketball in WCS.
I agree. I just think in general, overall, girls basketball is evolving no matter where you are. I think it's very fun when everybody is competitive, when everybody is competing at the highest level, and that's always the goal. But it's very fun when it's not, just 2 dominant or 3 dominants, when everybody's competing and they're going at each other. I think that's what makes the audience come. It's what draws the community and everything else.
No doubt about that. Coach Kaufman, I would say this too. This is a league now that's very respected across Middle Tennessee and the entire state. And we've got more young ladies who are next level kind of talent too.
No question about that. And, from you start looking at each program, and you mentioned, the game rising here in Williamson County. There's probably 10 or 11 state titles among the girls coaches in our county alone. So the basketball level's gotten a lot better, and the coaching's has really gotten better. And what Bree's done over there at Independence is certainly reflective of that.
Coach Kaufman, let's stick with your team a second. So you're coming into tonight's game, 21-6 overall, 10-3 in the district. Obviously a great season. Win on Tuesday night over Franklin, 47-41. Regardless of tonight's outcome, you're going to finish third. So now it's about your team, and you're not quite sure of your opponent, even though it's kind of shaping up to probably be Summit. But we'll see. Still a lot to be determined.
Sure. And I think for us right now, it's just about trying to learn how to win differently, because when you get to the tournament, you're going to have to do that. And you've seen scores change a little bit as the district's gone on, because there's good coaches in the district. They're going to take away strengths, and they're going to make you make adjustments. And I think that's what you're going to see the next 2 weeks. You're going to see some teams have to win and scrap and battle and do some things differently in order to advance in the tournament.
That's interesting you say that, because you're so right. Seems like the games get shorter, the scores get closer, the scores get lower. Here's something I'd be interested to see what you thought about this. Coach Wild, who I'm sure you both know, have a relationship with, he told me, we both coached at Franklin together, and I had a really good offensive team one of my last years there. Defensively, I wasn't as confident. They're good, but I wasn't as confident as I was about some other teams. Coach Wild mentioned to me, he said, if I look at the best teams I coached, everybody talks about defense, and it's great, but they can put the ball in the hole during the tournament. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, I think there's no question. We can all run around with we've got this trap or that half-court trap. Those are runs. That's what that is. At the end of the day, when you get to February, you've got to score it in the half court, and you got to go get stops in the half court. And so I think that's, and I don't know that one's more important than the other, but certainly they're both high commodity when you get to February.
No doubt about it. Coach Jackson, let's talk about your team. I think it's a team, you drop a game on Tuesday to a really good Brentwood team. You had been on a 4-game winning streak in the league. Your team's sitting at 13-11. 7-6 in league play. I think outside looking in, some people would have said, you know what, Indy, they're going to struggle maybe a little bit this year. I think your team, maybe not the Coach Kaufman and some of the insiders here, but in the minds of the pundits, so to speak, I think your team has maybe outperformed where people thought they would be this year. What are your thoughts about that?
I agree. I knew coming in, one of the biggest things is that point guard area that we're missing, we've been lacking. That was one of our goals, to develop with our fundamentals. I knew that confidence would have been a big thing that they haven't had so much throughout the years. And just rep it out. I feel like when it comes to building and laying a different foundation, it can be challenging. And I think that trust factor has been a thing of the year of just, I trust myself, I trust my coaches, I trust my players, I trust the community. So that's what we've been trying to build on, just keeping the main thing. Hey,
regardless of tonight's game, we know you're going to play Franklin. It's just a matter of where. You win, playing at your place. You drop tonight's game, Franklin wins, we're going to be down to a coin flip. So we know that. One thing, it's interesting you talk about that confidence and trust thing. I noticed that first game I watched you coach. There's a different kind of vibe with you and your players. One of the things that stood out to me, which I personally loved, MJ Montgomery hit a big three, and she come off the floor, and you're pointing up and y'all jumping up. I'm telling you, your team is a reflection of you, and I say that in a positive way.
Well, I appreciate that. You're a reflection of your coach. That's what I've always been taught. That's what I've always heard. And when the girls go out there and perform, it's not about perfection. And I think that's what athletes struggle with collectively at times is I want to get it right, I want to be perfect. No, it's a game of runs, it's a game of possessions, but as long as you put your best foot forward, you'll give yourself a chance to be successful, whether that's in a small win, whether that's turning the ball over, valuing the ball, whether that's rebounding, out rebounding, stuff like that, small details.
Nice to have a young lady named Aaliyah Fleming on your team too. First team All-District last year. She's really played well of late.
Absolutely. And one of the beauties about Aaliyah, I always tell her, like, you don't even know your potential and you're a senior. Like, you haven't even scratched the surface. One of the challenges we've been trying to get her to do this entire year was lead. And you don't have to just lead by example. It takes that vocal aspect to gear people in. And I think our team leads off of her and they gel off of her so well. Defensively and offensively, she is just one of those machines that we build off of.
Let's talk about the standings a little bit. As we mentioned before, 12-1 Brentwood and Nowensville. They play tonight at Nowensville. The winner will be first. Page locked in at third no matter what happens at 10-3. Indy 7-6. Franklin 6-7. Summit, Ravenwood 3-10, 2-11, Centennial 0-13. Now, Coach Kaufman, your team, again, third place. It looks like you will probably play Summit. May not, but you probably play Summit. What do you do though as a coach? Are you kind of in the back of your head, sort of doing some things in practice, thinking about that a little bit?
Well, I think you have to be. I mean, you don't want to look past an opponent. We're certainly not looking past Bree's group tonight. I mean, she's got them playing at a very high level. But we kind of know, hey, these are some tendencies of Summit, and these are some tendencies of Indy, as she knows ours. And so we're going to start trying to tweak some things a little bit to get yourself prepared for whatever that journey looks like when you get to part 3 of a season, which is the tournament.
Coach Jackson, your team, same thing. You're playing Franklin. So is that in the back of your mind as the coach? Do you openly talk about it with your players, or how's that look for your team?
Our goal is to take one game at a time. I think with adolescents, teens, when you feel too much in the head, you start to overthink too much. And going in against a good opponent, we know that the league is very stretched out with competitiveness. And going against a Page, we know the girls that we're going to have to guard, and it's more strategies. We're going to have to throw different things, and that's just basketball. But it comes down to strategies, especially in postseason tournament.
Hey, look, they're not going to watch the show anyway. I'm going to put you on the spot. What happens Brentwood at Nowensville tonight? Coach Kaufman, what do you think?
I think you could throw a coin up in the air. They're both so well coached, and they're almost polar opposites of each other in what are their strengths. And so when you pair that up, and I don't know. I mean, Chris did a great job at Bartlett at Brentwood the last 2 years. So I'm sure that Brentwood has that marked Friday night. We're going to try to right that ship. So I don't put anything past that game at all. So I'm going to take the 5th and go the easy way out.
How about you, Coach Jackson? Does home matter for Nowensville? Playing at home, is that going to make a difference?
I don't think nothing makes a difference besides showing up and competing. I'm firm on it. I just feel like when you filter a lot of things in your head, you can just go left or right with things. But our goal is to just take it one game at a time.
All right, let's do this. What we really want to talk about tonight's game. Coach Kaufman, keys for your team, not only tonight, but heading into that tournament. What do you need to do to maybe jump to another level?
Well, I've been real pleased with what we're doing on the defensive side. And, tonight's will be tough on us because Bree's strengths are not mine. Our teams are kind of polar opposites of each other as well. She's got great size and great length. And, where we're more a guard-oriented team, she's got really good 3s and 4s on her team. So we're going to have to figure out some ways to combat, her length and her ability to be able to high-low and score inside. And, as we're doing that, we're also going to have to figure out ways to, penetrate when she gets in her zone and to figure out ways to move people around when she's in her man because she is long. So those things, they're going to require some attention the next couple of days or the next little bit tonight.
Coach Jackson, not only tonight, but your team going forward in the tournament, because you do have an inside presence too. The thing that I really noticed about your post players, scoring with both hands a little bit around the back. We talked about that with your team a couple of weeks ago, Coach Kaufman. Really, your guards is what I was talking about.
Sure.
But your post, I've seen an improvement there using both hands even.
We stress skill development like from day one to now. And I think that goes back to that confidence that I talked about earlier of, okay, I can score with my right hand. Oh, okay, at least I can try with my left hand. And I think the girls have been doing a really good job of stepping out of their comfort zone of trying to stretch out their versatility. We know going into tonight's game, it's going to be a battle, especially with a lot of tough guards, with a well-coached team. We just have to strategize defensive-wise. We got to be locked in and knowing the personnel.
Well, I appreciate you being here, and good luck to both of you tonight and heading to the tournament.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Darrin.
Thank you.
We'll be back to talk to the boys' coaches. Welcome back to the Coaches Show. I'm Darrin Joines, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director. Now we've got our boys' coaches. Coach Mark Wilkins, welcome back to the show. First time this year. Coach Wilkins, thanks for being here.
Good to be here. Thank you.
And for the second time, we've got Coach Jared Street of Page High School. Coach, welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Listen, we did this before we got on air. A lot of jockeying for position still going on in this league. You guys had mentioned that every boys team but one has a winning record overall, which says something about our district. It also says something about our district that only 3 of the 8 are going to end up with a district winning record because you've all beat each other.
That's right.
It's nuts. You play last time January 24th, which seems like forever ago, at Page, 47-36 win for Independence. Coach Street, since we talked, your team has really moved up in the standings, and now it's in your hands. You pretty much, not guaranteed, you win tonight, you're going to get a home game. Is what it looks like.
Absolutely. We win tonight. We obviously have a great shot at hosting. Depends probably on some other teams as well. Obviously, we've played a really good team in Independence. They're tough, they're physical. So our guys are really motivated and excited for the opportunity. But we're just trying to get ready and be the best team we can be for tournament.
Let me ask you this, Coach Street, because this is something that came up last time. And nobody in the league is going to feel sorry for you. But let's talk about reality. Is this the healthiest your team's been this year?
Yes. Yeah, we're finally past the sickness. We've got guys back that were kind of just banged up a little bit. So, and we've been able to have time to work and practice a little bit. So obviously we're excited to kind of have our full complement of players that we were planning on having for all of district play. So we're trying to work the pieces back together again. But yes, we will be our healthiest, which is exciting.
And the tournament, once we move to the Final Four at Page High School, which could be an advantage too.
Absolutely.
You just got to get to the Final Four.
Absolutely. It's one game at a time. Tonight's important for us. I feel like we've kind of been in maybe tournament playoff mode the last probably week and a half as far as us trying to prepare. That district quarterfinal game is pretty important. We're excited to host. We'd love to have great crowds in our new gym, but we're really just focused one game at a time.
And listen, I can remember this from coaching. The most nerve-wracking game is that first-round tournament game. Coach Wilkins, obviously, we talk about the last 2 years, but really the past 3 years.
Yeah.
You guys have gone really deep in the tournament. But we look a year ago, I'm at the Ravenwood and Owensville game, so I'm like, this is going to be the best first-round game, so that's the game I go to. Wasn't even that good of a game, honestly. Ravenwood kind of rolled in that game. And I'm looking, and I can't believe, I was like, man, Independence is going to be out of the tournament. They're the best team. I know, we've talked about it. You go on and win the state title, but people forget what a great game that was with Summit, first round of the district.
Yeah, you got my heart rate up thinking about it again. Didn't really enjoy that one. But, it's one of those that we definitely, we're down 9, 7 minutes to go. And somehow just thankfully our guys kept battling and survived it, end up, I think, winning by 6 or 8, but it definitely didn't feel that way throughout. So and even looking back, the next game was a district semis against Ravenwood at Ravenwood, and we won in overtime. We were down that whole game. So, that game kind of gets forgotten, and all of it could, put you in a different side of the bracket.
Sure.
So it was hard to get there, but we've talked about this a lot as our district. If you can find a way to get out of our district tournament, especially, I think you're prepared for most things that you will see later on in the playoffs. Just because you have prepared different styles, different problems everyone presents, And so thankfully we were able to take advantage of that last year and able to survive, and kind of in a similar boat now. You know, we're the only ones apparently that's got to figure it out. We're the third place, and everybody else has got to try to figure out where they're gonna be. So some coin flips we're not gonna be involved in. But you know, getting back to tonight's game, it still means a whole lot to our kids. Rivalry, anybody in Williamson County, we want to win, and so they don't necessarily care about the seeding. They just want to play our best basketball here at the end, and hopefully we can tonight.
And I would guess, too, for most players, unless you've told them, which you probably have, they may not know what they're seeded.
Yeah, we have told them that just because it's kind of come up a few times, but they don't know. That doesn't really factor in. I mean, even didn't factor into Tuesday night's game. They wanted to win just as bad as they could. And, you know, then again, it doesn't know who we're playing at all for the next Friday. So we just got to, like Coach Street said, just got to take it one game at a time. Can't get too high, can't get too low, and hopefully keep playing our best basketball here at the end.
Now, listen, Coach Wilkins, we'll keep this between just the three of us. Nobody will know this.
Sure.
Tuesday night, you guys are hosting Brentwood. Who are you rooting for in the girls' game?
Yeah, it's not a great place to be in, if I'm honest. Sitting.
So your brother, John.
Want him to do well, but then
now
any
the
girls to
Brentwood
do
coach.
well. Yeah, so John's at Brentwood. So definitely cheering for him, but also know those girls, know Coach Jackson. She's doing a great job. So also rooting for them. So I guess you could say it's a win-win or a lose-lose. Kind of depends how you look at it. But it was weird to go sit behind Brentwood's bench or in a different part of the gym and kind of cheer him on a little bit. But I'm proud of him. He's having a lot of success, and he's doing great, and hopefully he can make a deep run as well.
So,
and Indy girls, make them have a deep run as well.
So here's the way I always put it. But it's different if you're the coach because the coach has to win. It's like Eric Hazard. Eric Hazard, one of my favorites. Football players going to Louisville. My description of that, because I'm a UK graduate, I hope Eric plays great, and they lose every game.
Sure, right.
Which you can't say that about the coach because you can't say lose every game.
Right,
Then
right.
You get fired for losing.
Well, in our district, you can go far and see each other at the state championship. So it's just kind of how it's set up here in Tennessee that you can keep battling. So that'd be great. That'd be a win-win if they play at the very end.
All right, let's talk about your teams more specifically. Paige, both of you 16 and 11. I thought it was interesting entering tonight's game. Paige, you're 5-8 in district play. You lose a tough one on Tuesday night, 45-42 to Franklin. You're in that four-way tie. And again, we talked about this before. All teams that are tied could be fourth or eighth. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is nutty. How do you even, one game at a time in tonight's game, there's really no choice but to do that.
Yeah, there's probably some old stories of some coaches trying to do certain things in games to get certain seedings. Can't do that. You just got to go out and play the best you can, and let the chips fall where they may. It's a fun league. We were talking before, Coach Wilkins and I, how this league makes us better coaches. Obviously, our players are better for all the types of styles that we see throughout the league. It's just about playing the best at the end. It's about playing the right way and being prepared to move forward and kind of survive in advance. I think everybody's kind of in survive in advance mode right now.
Talk about your players. Kind of a emotional loss on Tuesday. It's a tough game. You're behind. You get it back to a couple-point game. You lose 45-42. And I think people underestimate this. This being at Page. Page Franklin has a little history too. Mm-hmm. Those schools are two of the oldest, if not the oldest in the county. So talk about moving past that game for your team.
Yeah, I think in our league, there's some games that obviously have more juice to them for sure, but I think all these kids play together in spring AAU. We see each other in the summer, and so it's almost like every game has a rivalry feel. It
does.
And so being able to bounce back from a game like that probably depends on the type of game. If that game had come down to maybe a different ending, maybe we respond differently. I'm not sure. It's about just kind of picking up where you left off and moving on. For this being the last game of the regular season, we've done that a lot this year. You just you leave the last game where it was, win, lose, or draw, and then you got to get ready for the next one.
Coach Wilkins, again, 16-11, 8-5 in district play, locked up third. That's where you're going to finish. You had the same kind of game on Tuesday. Now, you were behind double digits late in that game. You get it all the way back. You take the lead late, and then Davis Cochran's going to be a headache for you guys, not only the rest of the year, but the next 2 years, only a sophomore. He gets a big three-point play. Same thing, though. How do you bounce back a little bit from that game?
Yeah, I've actually been really proud of our guys with the resiliency they've had for wins and losses. I mean, we had a bad loss a few weeks ago at 22-42 at Franklin, and but our kids just kept responding. They know it's just part of the process. 14 league games is it has to be the highest in the state, and so you can't get too high or too low. And our guys have done a good job of kind of staying steady and seeing that ultimately February 21st is where our season hinges upon completely. So I've been proud of that. I wish we could have, there's some things, even as coaches, I think, our coaching staff maybe could have done better. The players take that same ownership on. I'm proud of them for that. But at the end of the day, it still doesn't really matter until these, the week from Friday. Hopefully like I said, that's a little bit out of our control. You try to put yourselves in those situations, and our league does that naturally for you to put you in some high pressure situations. But ultimately, basketball is a tournament sport, and we're hoping to be playing our best basketball then.
Talk about your team, Coach. Obviously, state championship last year, state runner-up the year before, went really deep in your first year. But the past 3 years has to help your team. Now, obviously, Tylen Lewis, I like to call him Tournament Tylen, 2 region tournament MVPs as a sophomore and a junior. And Dawson Miller with experience, but you've got some other guys. They've been around it, hadn't played,
right?
But that has to help them too.
Yeah, Nick Daniel played great on Tuesday night, and he's one of those guys too that has a lot of experience in high pressure games. I think it does. I think that our guys, hopefully our season goes on, obviously to the last game of the year, it'd be great. But if it falls short, wherever in between there, it's not going to be because we're nervous or we're afraid of losing. That has to be our advantage. We've played over 70 games these last 2 years. 2 years heading into this. Tylen's played in over 120 games almost. And so that part is not necessarily my concern, although it's always out there. It's more of just are we executing well? And so I think that's hopefully, like I said, even the juniors that are now playing that haven't played a lot. They've seen it. They've been around it. They've been in the locker room before the games and after the games and know what it feels like, the preparation. So that's not the highest concern, I guess, that we'll have.
Let's talk about the standings again. So we got Brentwood and Franklin, both at 10-3. They're going to finish 1-2. Indy 8-5. Then here's the log jam. Nolensville, Page, Summit, Centennial, all at 5-8. You've beaten each other. If you have a tie, some of you've beaten Brentwood, some beaten Franklin. It's kind of a mess. Ravenwood at 4-9. Tonight's games, besides this one, Brentwood at Nolensville, Centennial, Summit, Franklin, Ravenwood. So we're going to have some coin flips, maybe more than one. Could be with an S flips after tonight's game. Coach Street, a home game again is possible. Didn't seem as likely a couple of weeks ago. But is that one thing that you've talked about with your team? Hey, you want to play at home, we got to take care of tonight, or is it not even coming up?
We've just said, hey, we want to play our best. We've kind of gone with the approach of I'm not sure our matchup really matters because we've been in every game or we've split. It would be extremely nice to host, being in our home gym. It's starting to feel more like home now that we've got a few more games in that new gym. But 3 of our district wins have been on the road as well. So our guys aren't exactly worried about playing on the road if we had to do that. I think for the district quarterfinal game, it really comes down to just the matchup and the confidence our guys will have going into that game. We'll certainly talk about how tonight we can control our destiny, but it's really about us having confidence, believing in ourselves, and playing together at the right time.
You know what's interesting as you look at this, and again, I'm not trying to give you guys an anxiety attack. There's some possibilities. We could have a Brentwood Ravenwood first round. Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah. A Battle of the Woods. You guys would probably enjoy that. We could have an Independence Summit again.
Yeah.
Board battle. I'm sure you'd love that.
Yeah.
We could have a Franklin Page. I guarantee you, and nobody's going to say this out loud, Franklin High School does not want to play y'all. A lot of people talk about matchups. I think Franklin is the toughest team to match up with, but you match up with them great.
I agree. We have 2 guys in James Hatchett and Matt Randall who really have done a great job guarding Christian. Of course, it takes 5 guys. We've I maybe tried to get a 6th guy in there just to maybe try to stop him because he's such a big load. But our guys have done well on him. The last 2 games, unfortunately, Tuesday we just didn't make enough shots.
And coach, with your team, again, it's not the Franklin show. This is the Indy Page show. But talking about matchups, you don't match up quite as good with Franklin as Page does.
No, we don't, and I guess we know that we're not going to play them first round. I think that we've shown moments that I go back to coaches all talk before the game. Who do you want to play, and where do you want to play? And I even talk to some coaches to say that playing at home doesn't really matter that much. Sometimes your kid's a little bit more tight at home than maybe on the road. Their house money, and so I don't know who we want to play. I do know we're playing at home. And so it's hard to really get too worked up about it. Now we do have a whole week after tonight's game, I guess, to think and prepare and really get our heads in the right spot. But I think you could talk yourself into playing this team or playing that team. Every team presents a certain amount of problems, and I guess it just sometimes comes down to just hitting shots, and you hope the other team misses a few.
I think it does too. And it's funny, we all talk about, and I know when you guys meet in the beginning, like, hey, let's get a week off. That is a torturous
It's awful.
week. I can remember having years as a coach where I scheduled a game that Monday or Tuesday because I hated that week. You're talking yourself into, I've seen situations where, you're the 1 seed playing the 8, and 8 has won like 2 games, and you're like, oh my gosh, how will we ever? I mean, and certainly in these games, everybody's going to be worked up.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the whole week.
It's fun for my spot.
Well, it's too much. You think too much about every circuit. What do they do? Start ruining this zone. We hadn't really worked on this zone. And, you start going too far down the rabbit hole.
And huddle doesn't help the situation, does it? Where you
Correct.
can overanalyze everything.
Correct. Now we could probably watch every single game they've ever played during that week, and all of a sudden we've worked ourselves into some decision that may or may not work. Because maybe we saw them do something back in November that they haven't done, and we're like, oh well, we got to be ready for that.
Let's finish with this. Let's talk about tonight, Coach Wilkins. What are some keys tonight? But really, more importantly, kind of heading into next week. What are some things you're like, we've got to really tighten this up?
Yeah, I think Page actually presents a lot of problems. They have a big senior class like we do. I think that they're physical. They do a good job getting to the rim. They have a lot of different guys that could score, and so I think they do a good job moving the ball. And when he mixes it up a lot with defensive schemes, so we've got to be prepared to be able to not just take bad shots and to really get in the right spots and hopefully take those shots that we've seen go in for us. So it's going to be tough. It was a very physical, tough game to the very end. Maybe a minute and a half. It was a 1-point game. There's some free throws late that looked like it was an 8-point game, but it was a very difficult game at their place. So, it's just, at this point of the year and kind of moving forward into next week, I've said it's probably too many times on the show, it does kind of interesting how it comes back to how your team is playing, because everyone knows what you're trying to do now. There are no secrets. There's 14 league games. Everyone's kind of settled into who they are. And so now you try to add a wrinkle here, but you don't want to make your kids think too much, especially going into high pressure playoff game. And so at the end of the day, that last game, that next game, the 21st, you hope that you're just playing and you're executing your stuff really well and then trying to take them out of what they're trying to do, whoever that is. And so that's going to be hopefully the recipe for us tonight as we play, and it's going to be difficult, but I think our boys are excited up for the challenge.
Coach Street, what about your team? Not only tonight, but moving into next week.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things. I mean, just how well do we execute a defensive plan in the half court? How well do we execute an offensive plan in the half court?
Yeah.
It really comes down to execution. Like Coach said, I mean, Indy provides a lot of problems for us with the kind of the same things. They move the ball really well. Obviously, Tylen is a load to have to guard because of his athleticism. He's got a high IQ. He's able to get other people involved. So I'm really looking for our guys to be able to be more disciplined on the defensive side of the ball. I like to be a little more physical if we can be. And then how well can we execute on the offensive side? Because defensively, I really feel like Indy is a lot more physical as the year has gone on, and they are a really good defensive team. So it's going to be a really big challenge for us for sure.
Well, appreciate you guys coming in, talking about tonight's game. Good luck tonight, and good luck next week.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for the Coaches Show. We'll see you next time.